The rain didn't fall gently that night. It slammed, not the kind of rain that cleanses the air, but the kind that presses down on everything, on rooftops, on windows, on memories, until even breathing feels heavier than it should. As a black car slowly crept toward the tall iron gate of a Montecito estate, the world outside was already screaming. For 3 straight weeks, headlines had looped endlessly. Talk shows recycled the same haunting footage. Screens flashed, opinions clashed, narratives were shaped and reshaped in real time. But inside her quiet living room, Meg Ryan did nothing. No statements, no interviews, no posts, just silence. Paparazzi caught brief glimpses of her walking her dog, her face hidden behind oversized dark glasses. Speculation exploded. Grief, regret, guilt, they were wrong. The truth went far deeper. When Meg finally broke her silence, she didn't do it with a press release or a polished Hollywood appearance. She posted a single black and white photograph, 2 people, dancing, smiling, alive in a moment, frozen in time. Her caption was simple, tender, devastating. "Oh, how we will miss this man. Thank you, Rob and Michelle, for believing in true love, fairy tales, and laughter." But what the world didn't know was this. For 10 years, Meg Ryan had been carrying something she never spoke about, a truth she buried the moment the story around Rob Reiner first began to crack. And that truth didn't come from tabloids. It came from Rob himself, a man she didn't just admire, but trusted like family. Years earlier, in a raw, unguarded moment, Rob had leaned in and said something so heavy it stayed with her like a scar. She tried to forget it, tried to convince herself it never happened. But now, running wasn't an option anymore. As Meg settled into a tall velvet chair, studio lights dimmed around her. No Hollywood gloss, no filters, just soft, intimate shadows, and a woman who looked like someone who had watched the ground crack beneath her feet and never fully recovered. She wrapped both hands around a ceramic mug, not drinking, just holding it, as if warmth alone might steady the shaking rising from her core. Her blue eyes lifted slowly, sharp, red-rimmed, sleepless, no smile, no sparkle, just truth. "I need to say this," she began, her voice low, rough, stripped of the softness audiences once knew. "Because if I keep pretending that perfect Hollywood family still exists, then I'm part of what happened to him." Her chest tightened as she inhaled. "I'm part of the lie that broke him." People thought they knew Rob Reiner, the baseball cap, the beard, that booming laugh that filled a room. They saw the man behind the feel-good films, the storyteller who made the world feel warmer and safer. But they never saw what happened when the camera shut off. They never felt the tension quietly building for years between Rob and Michelle, thick, unspoken, like fog that never lifted. Meg paused, her gaze drifting toward the rain streaking down the window. "You have to understand," she whispered. "Rob wasn't just a director to me. When their films wrapped, he didn't simply shake her hand and move on. Rob and Michelle pulled her into their lives, their home, their family. For a long time, they were proof that real love could exist in an industry built on illusion. But then, about 5 years ago, something shifted. The energy changed. And once you feel that kind of wrongness, you can never unfeel it." Meg remembered the night clearly. It was supposed to be ordinary, a simple Tuesday dinner at their house. No cameras, no press, no agenda, just food, conversation, familiarity. But the moment she stepped inside, she felt it. The air was wrong, not loud, not explosive, cold, controlled. like the echo of an argument that had already ended but never resolved. You know that feeling, Meg said quietly, leaning forward in her chair, when something has already cracked and everyone is pretending it hasn't? She could still see the table, the plates, the wine glasses catching soft light, and sitting there was Nick. She chose her words carefully. I have to be very clear, she said. I know he's facing serious charges now. I know he's their son. But the Nick I saw that night wasn't the kid I watched grow up. Her eyes darkened. There was something missing. She paused. His eyes were blank, cold, like someone had turned the lights off. They all sat there, acting normal. Rob Reiner did what he always did. Gentle, warm, trying to keep things light. He made a small dad joke about the pasta. Nothing serious, just an attempt to smooth the air. Nick didn't laugh. Instead, he slammed his fist down on the table. Plates rattled, wine tipped. The room froze. That wasn't awkward silence, Meg said, her hands clasping tightly. That was fear. The kind of fear where nobody breathes because nobody knows what comes next. She looked at Michelle, the anchor, the strong one. Michelle didn't yell, didn't argue. She flinched, looked down at her plate, and whispered, I'm sorry, Nick. Meg swallowed hard. Those words still hung heavy years later. Then Meg looked at Rob. Her voice dropped. What I saw in his eyes that night, I'll never forget. It wasn't anger, it wasn't frustration, it was fear, real fear. For just 1 second, Rob looked at her, and in that look, he was begging me not to say anything, Meg admitted, begging me to keep pretending. So she did. She ate the pasta, sipped the wine, smiled, kept the conversation moving, all while her heart slammed against her chest like it was trying to escape. She left early. Rob walked her to the car. He hugged her tightly, too tightly, and he didn't let go right away. Then he whispered something that still echoed in her mind. He's just going through a rough patch, Meg, Rob said softly. We just have to love him through it. Love fixes everything. Meg shook her head slowly as she repeated it. That was Rob's biggest mistake. He truly believed love was armor, that it could protect his family from anything. But for someone like Nick, in that fragile, unstable state, love didn't protect. It became leverage, something that could be twisted, used. This wasn't about one bad night. It was a slow unraveling, a quiet collapse. Over the next year, Rob's phone calls changed. They used to be full of energy, ideas, excitement. Then they became rare. And when he did call, his voice sounded hollow. He stopped talking about movies, Meg said, her voice cracking. Rob Reiner, the man who lived for cinema, gone from his own conversations. Instead, he asked the strange questions. Do you have a security system you trust? Do you think people can really change? Questions that came out of nowhere. He sounded trapped inside his own home. Rob and Michelle began making quiet moves, selling things, shifting money, preparing. They were paying off Nick's debts, not small ones, serious debts. The kind you never want tied to your name. One more check, Meg whispered. One more favor, one more attempt to save him. Then came the day everything broke. Meg was in a taxi in New York. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing, not ringing, buzzing over and over. Then a message from Billy Crystal. Just 3 words. They're gone. At first, she didn't understand. Gone where? Then she opened the link, aerial footage, flashing lights, police tape around the house. I couldn't breathe, she said. And then she admitted something that stunned the room. I was devastated, Meg said quietly. I was shattered. She paused, but I wasn't shocked. The studio fell completely silent. The media called it a sudden. Meg didn't. They keep saying it was unexpected, she said, leaning forward, her voice steady but edged with pain. A stress, mental health, pressure. She shook her head. That's not the whole truth. What no one wanted to say out loud, what made people uncomfortable, was the control, the manipulation, the way love and guilt twisted into something unrecognizable. Rob and Michelle weren't free, Meg said quietly. They were trapped, not by walls, but by coercive control inside their own home. Their peace faded first, then their independence, bit by bit. About 3 months before everything ended, Meg tried to visit. She was in Los Angeles, and something in her gut told her to stop by. When she arrived, the gate was shut. She buzzed. Michelle answered. Meg's voice softened as she remembered it. Her voice didn't sound like her, she said. Flat, careful, almost rehearsed. Michelle told her gently, Meg, we love you, but today isn't a good day. And then Meg heard shouting in the background, glass breaking. She froze. Then she did something she would regret for the rest of her life. She drove away. I didn't want to embarrass them, Meg admitted, tears welling. I wanted to respect their space. She swallowed hard. That choice will stay with me forever. Her voice sharpened. I should have done something. I should have called for help. I should have pushed past that gate. But politeness teaches us to look away, to mind our own business. And that silence, she said, shaking her head, cost everything. 2 days before it happened, Rob called. It was 3 in the morning. Meg's eyes glistened. He sounded calm, she said. Too calm. Rob told her he just wanted to hear her voice, to remember her laugh. She asked what was wrong. There was a pause. Then Rob said something that turned her stomach. I think we made a mistake, he told her. I think we loved too much and protected too little. Then he revealed the truth. Nick had been demanding the deed to the house, accusing Rob of hiding money. But Rob also said something else, something that almost gave her hope. I told him no, Rob said. For the first time, I told him no. Meg smiled through tears as she remembered her response. I told him I was proud of him, she said. I thought he was finally taking his power back. Her smile faded. I didn't know that drawing that line would cost him everything. Meg straightened in her chair. I keep hearing excuses, she said firmly. Confusion? Chaos? She shook her head. The Nick I saw knew exactly what he was doing. He knew which buttons to press. If he cried, Michelle softened. If he hinted at hurting himself, Rob reached for the checkbook. He turned their love into leverage, Meg said coldly. That's not confusion. That's calculation. When the money stopped, when forgiveness no longer worked, he broke the very people who built their lives around him. Meg's voice softened, but the pain remained sharp. Rob gave the world hope, she said. He taught us love could conquer anything. The cruel irony? That same love, unconditional, endless, destroyed his peace. She looked directly into the camera. That's how their story ended, she said quietly. Not because there wasn't enough love, but because there was too much of it. A love with no limits. A love that couldn't say no. She leaned forward. I'm speaking now because I want justice, Meg said. Not just in a courtroom, but for their legacy. She paused. We have to stop glorifying parents who give and give until there's nothing left, her voice cracked. If you're scared in your own home, love is not enough. She whispered the final truth. Rob and Michelle didn't choose survival. And now, she said softly, the world feels colder without them. The studio fell silent. Rain tapped against the windows. Meg Ryan sat back in her chair, eyes fixed on the untouched mug in front of her, cold, just like the truth she had finally set free. Meg didn't stop after that interview. She couldn't. What she had released into the world couldn't be pulled back, not by publicists, not by headlines, not by fear. Within hours, everything changed. Newsrooms scrambled. Social media ignited. Their story shifted from a tragic loss to something far darker. This wasn't just grief anymore. It was a story about control, about silence, about how love, when left unchecked, can be weaponized. The illusion surrounding the Reiner household, Hollywood's golden couple, the model of stability, collapsed almost overnight. For years, Rob and Michelle Reiner had been the example of how to do it right. But now, every word Meg spoke peeled back another layer. In the days that followed, Meg released more notes, emails, handwritten letters between her and Michelle. Each one revealed a family slowly collapsing behind closed doors. One of the most haunting moments came from a statement she gave directly to Vanity Fair. She described a weekend in the Hamptons, Rob's birthday 3 years earlier. The ocean had been calm, candles glowed softly, the sky was painted gold and pink, but the tension never left the air. You could feel it, she wrote, like static. That single line changed everything. People realized the cracks hadn't appeared suddenly. They'd been spreading quietly for years. Meg remembered Rob standing by the ocean that night, looking smaller, older, worn down. He turned to her and asked a question that shattered her. Do you think I failed him? He wasn't talking about his career. He was talking about Nick. Nick had accused Rob of caring more about movies than family. Meg explained it plainly. Guilt was his favorite weapon, she said. He knew exactly where to hit. Rob wanted to be the good guy, the fixer, the man who made everything okay. Nick twisted that instinct until success felt like something Rob had to apologize for. Then Meg spoke about Michelle, brilliant, creative, full of fire. Michelle used to paint soft, dreamlike landscapes that made you feel calm just looking at them. But the last time Meg visited her studio, every canvas was blank, every single one. I can't focus anymore, Michelle had told her. I'm always waiting for the next call, the next crisis. They lived in constant tension, always bracing, always preparing, and then Meg said something that cut deeper than anything else. Everyone saw it. Friends, colleagues, people at dinners, people on set. Everyone felt something was wrong, but nobody stepped in. We told ourselves it wasn't our place, Meg admitted. We called it privacy. She looked down, but really, it was avoidance. Her words didn't just expose what happened inside that house, they exposed the silence around it. We all knew, she said quietly, and we did nothing. Then came the podcast. Meg's voice was stronger now, sharper. Anger and guilt had turned into fuel. She spoke about Nick's outbursts, his tone, the way he spoke to his parents. This wasn't a stress, she said. This was control. Anytime someone suggested boundaries or real intervention, Rob shut it down. You don't understand addiction, he'd say. But Meg was clear. This wasn't just addiction. It was a hostile takeover of a family. And everyone respected Rob's wishes, so they stayed quiet while the situation grew worse. Then Meg revealed one final memory, one she'd tried to bury. She and Nick alone in the kitchen. Nick was calm, charming. That was the scary part, she said. He looked at her and said, "My parents live in a fantasy world. They think everything has a happy ending." At the time, she brushed it off. Looking back, it wasn't sarcasm, Meg said softly. It was a warning. As the January 7th trial date approached, Meg's words echoed everywhere. Headlines, courtrooms, Hollywood itself. When a reporter asked if she was afraid, her answer was cold and final. "He took the people I loved," she said. "There's nothing left he can take from me." She had already begun building something new, a foundation in Rob and Michelle's name, focused on helping older parents facing manipulation and abuse from their adult children. "It's a silent epidemic," Meg said, and Rob became the face of it without ever knowing. On the eve of the trial, she visited the house. The tape was gone, but the silence wasn't. Rob's glasses still sat on his desk. A script lay open to page 42. Time felt frozen. Meg sat in his chair, and she made him a promise. "This story won't end in silence," she whispered. "It will end with the truth." The morning the trial began, the sky was heavy, gray, still, like it was holding its breath. Outside the courthouse, tension buzzed through the air. Reporters packed the steps. Cameras flashed like lightning. When Meg stepped out of the black SUV, she didn't wave. She didn't smile. She wore a simple black suit. Her hair pulled back, her face calm but unreadable. She walked forward without hesitation. Inside, the courtroom was overflowing. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Pens scratched paper. Even the judge seemed to sense that this wasn't just another case tied to fame. When Meg took her seat, heads turned. For a split second, she looked like the star the world once knew. Then her name was called. She stood, walked forward with quiet control, and took the oath. "I knew Rob Reiner for over 30 years, she began. "I loved him like family." The room went still. "He wasn't just a filmmaker," she continued. "He was the most compassionate man I've ever known." She paused. "But compassion can become dangerous when it blinds you." Meg spoke plainly about the phone calls, the warning signs, the moments she tried to help, and the moments she stayed silent. "We all saw it," she said firmly. "We all knew something was wrong." Her voice didn't shake. "And we all did nothing, including me." That admission hit harder than anything else. It hung in the air, heavy, unavoidable. Even the defense team shifted in their seats. Meg took a breath and continued. "Nick wasn't lost," she said. "He was in control." Her words sharpened. "Guilt was a tool. Pity was leverage. He knew exactly what worked." The courtroom shifted. Unease spread like a ripple. "He used love like a game," Meg said quietly, "and he knew he could win." Then her voice softened. "Rob once told me, if I just love him harder, maybe I can save him." She looked down. "But love doesn't save everyone," she added. "Sometimes it hides the truth." When she finished, there was no reaction, no movement, just silence. Even the judge paused before speaking. What Meg had given wasn't just testimony. It felt like a reckoning. As she stepped down, she didn't look back. She didn't need to. Outside, the crowd erupted. Cameras surged forward. Voices shouted her name. Meg didn't slow. She got into the waiting car and disappeared behind tinted glass. That night, her words played on every screen. People called her brave, honest, unflinching. Meg said nothing. Those close to her said she went home, fed her dog, and sat quietly by the window for hours, watching the rain fall. Because no matter how powerful truth is, it doesn't undo what's already happened. It doesn't heal. It only keeps the darkness from being buried. And that's where this story truly ends. Not with comfort, not with closure, but with clarity. Meg Ryan didn't just reopen an old Hollywood wound. She forced the world to look at what hides behind fame, loyalty, and silence. Her pain became testimony, her silence became warning, and her voice became something bigger than grief. In the weeks after the trial began, the story refused to fade. Every major outlet wanted Meg, morning shows, late night interviews, magazine covers, but Meg wasn't chasing attention. She was chasing purpose. This isn't about Hollywood anymore. She told one host quietly, it's about how silence protects the wrong people. Letters poured in, emails, voicemails, stories from across the country. Older parents describing manipulation by their adult children. Fear tangled with guilt, love mixed with shame. Meg read every single one. Every story feels familiar, she admitted, like echoes of what Rob and Michelle lived through. The foundation she created, built in their names, quickly became more than a charity. It became a movement. She partnered with lawyers, psychologists, advocates. Together, they pushed for real protections for vulnerable parents facing emotional and financial abuse. We need to call this what it is, Meg declared at a press conference. Not family drama, not private business. Her voice didn't shake. Abuse is abuse. The room erupted in applause, but those close to her noticed something else. She still wore Rob's silver bracelet, a small, quiet detail, a piece of him she refused to let go. On the eve of the trial's most critical phase, Meg released a short, handwritten statement online. No build-up, no warning, just truth. Tomorrow isn't about revenge, it's about accountability. Rob and Michelle believed in redemption. I believe in truth. And truth is how we honor them. Within hours, it spread everywhere. Old film clips resurfaced. Fans shared lines from Rob's movies. Messages flooded timelines. It felt like the industry itself paused, united, reflective, quiet. The night before court resumed, a photographer captured Meg walking alone along a Malibu beach. No entourage, no performance, just wine pulling at her hair as she stared at the horizon. Later, when someone asked what she had been thinking in that moment, she answered softly, I was thinking that love should never cost someone their peace. She paused. And I was thinking that if Rob were still here, he'd tell me to keep fighting. What started behind closed gates in Brentwood had grown into something much larger, an awakening. Meg Ryan didn't just tell a story. She exposed a pattern, one too many people recognize but rarely name. When the flashing lights fade, when the headlines move on, what remains is this. Love without boundaries is not kindness. Silence is not compassion. And protection does not mean surrender. This story doesn't end with comfort. It ends with clarity, a reminder that sometimes the greatest danger isn't hidden in the shadows. It's sitting quietly at the table while everyone stays polite, loyal, and silent.